Will Conor McGregor ever return to the UFC? He confirmed recently in a tweet that he'll make his comeback in the welterweight division, but there's more to that story than just a tweet. What are some of the potential fights there for him? And with his present USADA scandal, can he come back in 2023? There are a lot of juicy stories circling around Conor's return, so let's waste no more time and get right into it. The last time we saw Conor McGregor in the UFC, he broke his left leg in a fight against Dustin Poirier. Now he's bulked up, he's healthy, and he says his leg is stronger than ever. In a question and answer session with his fans on Twitter, a certain fan asked Conor if he would make a move up to the welterweight division when he comes back, and Conor replied, "Definitely." Now think about this for a second. If Conor McGregor goes up to welterweight, what's in store for him there? A good place to start would be with the current champion, right? Leon Edwards. A Conor versus Edwards fight would be interesting to see. However, Leon and Conor are both under Paradigm management, so both fighters might not be so interested in fighting each other. But one fighter that would definitely make sense for Conor McGregor is Jorge Masvidal. And believe it or not, Masvidal versus Conor McGregor would make one heck of a main event. You know why? Well, it's simple. They are both crazy stand-up fighters, and yes, Masvidal doesn't have the perfect record in the UFC that suggests he would drop Conor in the first round. But one thing is certain, it will be a dogfight. Let's take a trip back to 2017, UFC on Fox, Masvidal versus Donald Cerrone. This is the perfect fight to show just how good Masvidal's striking is. His jabs and leg strikes were very effective and perfectly timed, making him drop one of the all-time greats, Cowboy Cerrone, in the second round. One thing about Masvidal is that when it's time to step up, he steps up. You can't count him out. When you do, he proves you wrong. He proves his head is still in the game and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And maybe he'll be an underdog in the fight. Maybe Conor breaks his chin in the first round, or maybe Conor gives him a taste of his own medicine with the flying knee. Conor's pretty good at that stuff too. We can't really say right now what will happen, if it ever happens, of course. But Conor versus Masvidal at welterweight would be a good place for Conor to start in the division. Another fighter who would be a perfect match for Conor McGregor is Nick Diaz. Nick is the type of guy that can punch his opponent into another dimension. Like, if that was possible, Nick would be one of the first people to do it. His boxing is so refined and smooth, it looks so easy when he does it. Nick Diaz is currently out of the UFC, but he did mention he wanted to make a comeback in 2022. Nick Diaz versus Conor McGregor would sell out any arena as the main event of any UFC card, especially when you factor in Conor mentioning Nick's brother, Nate Diaz, as the hardest opponent he's ever faced. So would Nick give Conor that deja vu sensation of his bloody fights with Nate? Or would Nick Diaz fight him on an entirely different landscape than Nate did? These are the type of questions that come with such an amazing fight. Oh, and let's not count out Khamzat Chimaev, or even Kamaru Usman. There are so many names in the welterweight division that could give us that electrifying fight against Conor. Let's also not rule out some 155-pound fighters that have called McGregor out, like Michael Chandler, and the man who Conor would love to lay his hands on one more time, Dustin Poirier. Poirier has said before that he wouldn't mind moving up to 170, same with Chandler. So could we see McGregor versus Poirier 4 at 170? That'll definitely be a game changer and something the UFC needs to make happen. Okay, we might have gotten you hyped up for nothing. Let's come back to reality for a second. What if Conor doesn't actually make a comeback at 170? What if he doesn't even come back at all? Well, we're not sure even Dana White has an answer to that question. There's a 90% chance he'll come back in 2023, but he currently has a little problem with USADA. According to reports, Conor McGregor hasn't been tested by the United States Anti-Doping Agency, aka USADA, since his fight with Dustin Poirier in July 2021. This could mean that Conor McGregor is no longer a part of the USADA testing pool. How the testing pool works is this. An official from USADA randomly shows up at a fighter's doorstep unannounced and tests them for any banned substances by the Athletics Commission. If the fighter is unlucky and gets caught with something crazy in their system, kabam, they're out for at least 6 months. In Conor's case, we don't know exactly why he hasn't been tested. Maybe it's because he's been traveling around the world and throwing parties in his $4 million Lamborghini yacht. We don't know. But what we do know is that there are international fighters also in the USADA testing pool, so it's not confined to the United States. And what does not getting tested by USADA mean for Conor? Basically, there are two major reasons why a fighter doesn't get tested by USADA. One is if the fighter retires, and two is if the fighter no longer has a contract with the UFC. This automatically removes the fighter from the USADA testing pool. So which of these cases does Conor fall under? Believe it or not, no fighter can be on a UFC card, let alone fight in the promotion, without being active in the testing pool for at least 6 months. This is one of the reasons why Jon Jones hasn't made his return, and also why Henry Cejudo has been on the sidelines. Of course, there's still the case of who they'll fight, when they'll fight, and all that. But speaking hypothetically, if Conor is out of the USADA testing pool, he needs to get back in and wait another 6 months before we can see him fight again. Hate to burst your bubble, but that's how these things work. And how realistic is it that Conor waits another 6 months outside the UFC before he makes his return? Coupled with the fact that he's currently shooting a new movie, Roadhouse, with Jake Gyllenhaal, you know, the guy from Spider-Man Far From Home, that's a big one for Conor. Freaking big one. He's a brand of his own. He can easily make a transition into Hollywood if he wants to. There'd be 1,001 producers that would want to cast him in their movie. So what if Conor doesn't return? It happened to Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock from WWE. We saw how he made a swift turn into acting. No one saw it coming, maybe not even The Rock himself. Now he's top 3 highest paid actors in the world, and he's not number 3. This can be Conor's fate in the next couple of years, unless the UFC and USADA have come to some agreement to let Conor heal up, giving the reason why he hasn't been tested. This is a very big speculation, but it can't be ruled out. There are some very unharmful drugs that are banned by the commission, but can also help heal an injury pretty fast. Could that be what Conor's doing here? Maybe it wasn't the UFC. Maybe it was just Conor trying to get his injured leg back as soon as possible. And maybe, just maybe, you'd like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of our sizzling videos. At the end of the day, if Conor returns, there are a number of lethal fighters that would be willing to give him a freaking challenge. And if he doesn't return, let's hope that doesn't happen. Make sure you check out this other video showing on your screen. Bye for now.